almost tripped and died. YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. I hope you guys are having a fantastic 4th of July weekend. Of course, that's for the people that are watching this in the United States. But that said, I hope regardless, you guys are having a great weekend. The United States has this beautiful thing called the Supreme Court. As of now, we have 6 positions being covered by Republicans and we have 3 positions being covered by Democrats. Historically speaking, it kind of goes 4 to 5, but right now it's kind of heavy on the Republican side, obviously. Now, I'm not here to deep dive into the recent decisions that have been going on, even though, in my opinion, they've been pretty damn good. Hell, I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch my videos who think I'm just an outright Republican or maybe even like far right for that matter. But I absolutely assure you I'm not. That being said, guys, I am not an expert at law. I'm not a constitutionalist. Sometimes I do struggle to interpret the Constitution, but then again, they don't pay me to do so. I count on the people who are paid to do so to interpret it the best way they can. And from what I can tell, a lot of the stuff that's been going on recently is supposed to be state by state. Take Roe v. Wade, for instance. Now, I don't necessarily agree with how my state's handling it, but giving the power of allowing abortion or limitations of abortion or completely outright banning it should be 100% based on the state. Now, I don't spend my entire life trying to figure out how the hell this will work without people jumping states and doing all kinds of weirdness. But that being said, some states that are banning it are handling it better than others that are banning it. Well, then you have places like Colorado that allow you to have an abortion at any stage of the pregnancy. Abortion is available up to 26 weeks. That is long past viability. See, as much as you might think it's unfair that in some states they've outright banned it, with some exceptions to that, I would argue that a lot of people, or hell, I would argue even most people, would think it would be insane to abort a child at 26 weeks. Either side of this camp is throwing each other's arguments just completely out the window. This is not a video about pro-life or abortion. All I'm trying to point out is there's a huge difference between how each state handles such things. For example, I'm willing to bet that most people who are watching this video probably don't know that the age of 21 to consume alcohol is not a federal law. It is actually done state by state. Now, this one isn't like super comparable because if a state says they're going to lower their drinking age to 19, the federal government has put in stopgaps to remove funding or to decrease funding to things like highways and freeways. So it's a situation like you can do it, but you're not going to want to. Now, the one thing I wanted to do a little bit of focus on today is the affirmative action decision. Basically, racism or discrimination of certain colors or ethnicities in order to get other certain colors and ethnicities into a school. Not based on grades, not based on stat scores, but simply your skin color. Now, this has been used quite heavily at Harvard, where they were basically blocking a lot of Asian and whites getting into the school in an effort to get more blacks and Latinos into their school. First off, no matter how you want to cut it, that is racism. And even if you don't want to stand up to it because of white people, let's take them off the table because it's okay to go against them. We've already learned all this for the past several years. But let's pull in the Asian Americans into this scenario. Now, I'm of the mind that it has nothing to do with these people's race. It has 100% to do with their culture. From my understanding and my little bit of reading, there are a lot of Asian cultures that hold things very dearly, like family values, education, and really just a good sense of pride and community. And I'm not gonna lie, we can all use a little bit more of all these things. I am definitely not convinced that being an intellectual person is based on your race, or you're more likely to be based on your race. But without a doubt, no argument, culture is a huge factor. I mean, if you were to take a kid from the inner city, doesn't matter what his race is, growing up in poverty with a single parent household, constantly seeing crimes, constantly being probably involved in crimes, on top of drug use and God knows what else is going on around them. What do you think their chances are of survival? What do you think their chances are of getting a great education and moving into something like Harvard? Probably quite slim considering the environmental factors. Again, it doesn't matter what the race is, it just has to do with everything that's going on around them. Nurture and nature are both very huge factors. And of course there are outliers. Some people are just born with a very different kind of brain. Not every black guy is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, I made this video kind of addressing a little bit of this in the past, but I don't know about you guys, but hear me out for a second. If you're going to put people into a very important position, into a job that's going to be like a doctor or a lawyer or really any job for that matter, wouldn't you as an employer like to hire someone who's, more qualified? Or wouldn't you as like a consumer or a patient, wouldn't you like to deal with someone who's the most qualified, especially if it's something like a surgery for that matter? Would you want someone to operate on you because somebody who got their degree got into that school based on their skin color? And maybe they're not the worst doctor in the world, but maybe they could have hired someone who's way more qualified. See, this goes beyond school, guys. This goes into the actual professional workforces as well. When you start putting people into schools that aren't as qualified as someone else, or when you start hiring people who aren't the most qualified and you're only hiring them based on their skin color, you're not getting the best of the best. If I go to a doctor and I need some kind of detrimental surgery that's either life or death, I don't care if the guy is black. I don't care if he's Mexican. I don't care if he's white. I don't care if it's a woman for that matter. Just please, for the love of God, give me the best person that's most qualified for the job. But when you start saturating these markets by putting a bunch of people people into these schools that have no business being there over someone who's way more qualified, and then they enter the workforce being hired on that same merit, which being none other than your skin color, is not going to breed innovation. It's not going to make the best version of society. It's just not. I think most people are not understanding the trickle effect it will have into regular society. This isn't just about them going to school. This is about people entering the workforce, not to mention failure rates of these people who shouldn't have gotten into the school in the first place. And it's not to say these people aren't smart, but there's just some schools that are just geared for certain brains, not certain skin colors. And people have been putting in arguments about legacy people going to these schools, generally probably being mostly white, sure. But if you think there's no black legacy kids, you are insane. There are plenty of successful people of color who are able to get their kids in these schools just by making certain phone calls and making certain donations. If you think white people are only capable of that, you are out of your mind. Now, is it going to be mostly white people that can do that? Yeah. It's because this country is mostly white people. I feel like this isn't complicated math here, you guys. When you have a society that is mostly one race, obviously they're going to take up the majority of certain aspects of that society. It would be like me going to Kenya and being upset that there's not enough white doctors. That makes no sense. So I will conclude here, you guys. First off, let parents choose where their kids can go to school. Give them vouchers so the money can go with the child. I feel like that will solve quite a few problems in these urban communities that are struggling to get their kids into a decent school, because most of the schools in those inner city areas are probably terrible. Second, to my far left people, stop being racist. Stop assuming that a black person needs to get into a college only based on their skin color. I don't know if you know this, but that's racist. And lastly, to the general public, Asians, blacks, whites, whatever, especially young kids who are aspiring to go to a college, stop putting so much weight onto colleges. Trade schools are 100% a better option for most people. Do you know how much money you can make doing basic trade stuff? Now, I'm not trying to discount trade stuff by saying basic, because God knows I couldn't wire nothing. But I'm telling you right now, if you want to make a good living, look into trade schools. Ignore all this bullshit college. Most of it is propaganda anyways. Most of it is indoctrination anyways. Your time is better spent learning a really good skill and making a lot of money. But you guys, those are just my comments while I've been drinking this whole time. You just haven't seen me doing it. But of course, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like button or that dislike button. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.